I'm Revana, cardiologist in Houston, Texas. In the beginning, I wanted to produce amazing wine, world-class wines. That's how we chose Napa Valley. I think it's very important to have a winery in order to produce great wine, to control the quality. It was in 2005. I'd never been to Oregon. The quality of the vineyard is amazing. Out of 26 soil types in Oregon, it has 18 different soil types. Very complex vineyard. I'm only one person, I don't have any investors. Of course, we've been on the top 100 twice. In short time, it only took me 4 years to be top 100. We've done in Argentina, grown varietals, GSM. We were the first one to produce. We were one of the first few to produce the natural beautiful. So we were always on the cutting edge. We followed the same philosophy, what I did in Napa, did in Argentina. Try to do everything right.
Okay, so good evening, and that is our intro to Revana. My apologies for the tech gremlins, but we are here now. So I'm Jamie from the Online Wine Tasting Club, and we've got Dylan from Revana. And we've got wine one in the glass. I'm sure a lot of you have got wine one in the glass, so we are going to run through this. And this is our Riesling. So, Alexana's Riesling. We're going to do a little bit of a mix and match today. So we're going to do 3 wines from Oregon. We're then going to do 2 wines from Mendoza, and then we're going to come back and do the final wine from Napa. So, Dylan, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and give us a little run through of what we've got in the glass?
Absolutely. So my name is Dylan York. I've been working with Dr. Revana for a little over 6 years now. I look after global sales and lots of other things. We're a very small company. Doc has put together 3 wonderful estates. The first one was Revana in Napa. The second one was Alexana in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And then finally, our last estate that we built in 2008 was Corazon del Sol in the Uco Valley of Argentina. So tonight we're going to start. In Oregon with a dry Riesling, and I think something I said before. Like when most people hear the word Riesling, they automatically go to sweet. This is not the case in this wine. This is a true dry Riesling. We make this in a very kind of an old world style. As you'll notice, this is a 2017 vintage. Personally, we really love releasing this wine much later. We could certainly release this wine right upon release. It doesn't really see a whole lot of oak. This wine goes through a process of lees contact, of basically aging the wine on the lees in a barrel for 4 months. After that, it goes into bottle. And then we really feel personally that this wine kind of just put it to sleep for a little while, come back to it, because after 3, 4, 5 years of aging potential in the bottle or aging in the bottle, the wine becomes this much more, just develops more complexity. It has time to sort of evolve in the bottle, and the outcome that you're seeing right now is exactly where we wanted. It's fresh, it's lively, it's some of the tasty notes that we saw, like fresh pear, apple, waxy texture. Watch how the wine makes your mouth water. That's one of the biggest things and the fun things about Riesling, and how refreshing it is, and the level of acidity that it can offer.
Absolutely, and the tasting notes are there. I like this. The whole long tasting note, lovely and fresh, just enough sweetness to balance the acidity. Absolutely, and lots of those classic things that you expect from a Riesling. Fresh. You've got that honey, you've got the cellar, and it does both. You've got these great fruit flavors, but this lovely acidity, this lovely minerality, and from a place that and I think Oregon in general is somewhere that we're starting to see a little bit more in the UK, but it's still not a place that lots of people are familiar with. So as we dive through these wines, that's probably a good thing to say. So what I would say is let's get wine number 2 in the glass. I'm going to move the tasting notes on so we can taste that. We're going on to the Gris. And then I'm just going to pop the video on from the winemaker, who's just going to run through exactly how this tasting is going to work this evening.
Hello, and welcome to today's Revana portfolio tasting. My name is Tressiter Burns. I'm the winemaker at Alexana Winery, the largest of our 3 properties. We're located in Oregon's Dundee Hills. And today we're actually going to start with a selection from the estate, from our 52-acre vineyard. We're starting with our 2017 Riesling. And then we're going to move to 2 selections from the Willamette Valley. We have our 2018 Terroir Series Pinot Gris, which includes Pinot Gris from our property as well as some neighboring estates, and our 2018 Terroir Series Pinot Noir. Then we move to Argentina and our property Corazon del Sol. We start with the 2019 Luminoso Blanc, and then we'll finish with the 2018 Malbec. Finally, we head back north to the Napa Valley and our Revana estate, and we'll finish with our 2015 Terroir Series Cabernet Sauvignon. Thank you for joining us.
Fantastic. So we've got Pinot Gris in the glass now, and Pinot Gris, Pinot Grigio, exactly the same thing. Well, but not is what's very important. There's a lot of things, synonyms with grapes. Shiraz versus Syrah, Zinfandel versus Primitivo, genetically the same, but depending where they grow up, who's making them, and what they're playing with, they can make some very, very different styles. So
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about this.
Very, very much influenced by, and all grapes are influenced by the environment. What we're looking at in Oregon, when Oregon was first being developed, a lot of people tried to plant. They were bringing up grapes from California. They were bringing up Chardonnays who were really used to a California Mediterranean climate. They tried to plant them in Oregon, didn't really work out so well. Pinot Gris, however, became the most widely planted grape variety in Oregon because it adapted great to the cool climate. Most of the places in the world, Pinot Gris or Pinot Grigio can be grown in a wide array of climates, but cooler climate does really well with this wine. You can find good Pinot Grigios in northern Italy and Alto Adige that just have fiber and acid and really clean. What you're seeing here in Oregon, the style of grape that we chose, the style of Pinot Gris that we chose to plant here was actually from the Alsace region of France. And so what you'll notice with this Pinot Gris is a little bit more viscosity, a lot more body. When you taste this wine, taste it around, like swish it around a little bit and watch how this wine feels on your tongue. Creaminess is definitely one of the things that kind of come to mind with this wine. It's got a really nice, beautiful, luscious palate. It wraps itself around your tongue. Meanwhile, again, like making your mouth water. Like I think, before on our first cut, we were talking, I was going to show you guys how to measure acid by just taste the wine, let it touch all the parts of your palate, swallow, open your mouth and put your tongue to the roof of your mouth and just watch that salivation effect that's happening. And that's how you can measure acid. And both of the Riesling would be probably considered high acid. The Pinot Gris that we're tasting now, number 2, is probably going to be moderate, medium plus acid. So you're going to see the difference in the acidity on both of these wines. But the Gris, back to what I was saying also about releasing a wine when it's really ready. This is the 2018 vintage Pinot Gris. It's one of my absolute favorite vintages we've ever produced. This vintage garnered a 95-point score from Decanter, which we were thrilled about. I mean,
fantastic!
For a Pinot Gris, yeah, we were so amazed. But this is one of those Rieslings, one of the Pinot Gris that out of all the ones we've made, this is the one that's got some of the best press, but it's one of the ones that has the most age-worthiness too. I wish that, and luckily for you, everyone that's viewing here, all of this came to the UK after that Decanter got the points. The UK bought a lot of this. So I have 0 of this in the US anymore. I'm really jealous.
So get it while you can.
I know. Yeah, I'm really jealous. I wish I had more of this in the US to sell still. As we, the caveats of holding wine back and then people get to see it in this beautiful stage. This is kind of something happens. This is kind of what happens. But yeah, get it while you can. But it's a gorgeous wine. I think this is not your normal Pinot Grigio from Italy. This is not a porch pounder. This is something with texture. It's got a lot of body, and it's delicious with heavier proteins. You can do roast chicken and pork and all kinds of stuff with this wine. So.
And I think what's important about that as well is it has got that little bit of age on it. It's, a lot of the time, Grigio, people go, get it, open it, drink it, be done with it.
Absolutely, yeah. You're not aging Cavit Pinot Grigio. You know what I mean? You're not waiting for anything miraculously to happen with lighter bodied Italian Pinot Grigios. But with Pinot Gris, when you hear the word Gris, for the most part, you can expect a little bit more body in the Grigio, and you'll see that in the Alsatian styles and things like that.
So for anyone who Oregon is a new region to, where is it? What's it about? Because I think we're seeing more, and we'll talk a little bit about when we go to Argentina as well. When we talk about France, we go to Burgundy, and then within Burgundy, we talk about Bellini and Montrachet and all these tiny little bits.
Yeah.
Oregon is quite a big place just to go wine from Oregon. So where in the States are we, and kind of how are the wine growing regions in Oregon? Whereabouts are they, and what are we looking at, and how's it developing? Do we see it kind of going in the future?
Yeah, so Oregon, Pacific Northwest wine country, which is we're basically situated right off the coast. There's a small coastal mountain range that runs right along the coast of Oregon, and Willamette Valley is basically right over that coastal range. The Willamette Valley is made up of 11 little AVAs, which were little sub-appellations, like the same way we talk about Burgundy, why we hit all the little villages. Very similar. Dundee Hills is where we are here. That's one of the American viticulture areas. This was established in 2005, and actually one of the first places that grapes were planted in the 1965. And that's pretty much what started the whole movement in Oregon. Was done in the late 60s. Now it's a very different territory. It's become incredibly popular for winemakers who want to make wines in a cool climate region, and that's one of the reasons when you see grapes like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, very, very, they do excellent in cool climates. And so if you want wines that have vibrant acid, cooler climate will offer you that. Versus Mediterranean warmer climates like in Napa Valley, which we'll do at the very end of the tasting, you're going to see deeper, darker colors, more intensity, because the more sunshine hours you have, the more darker, the thicker the skins are, whereas you get more tannins and more sugar and just bigger body. Oregon still looked at as a cool climate, even though it's getting warmer and warmer every year for us. They're very different. If you look at like what was going on in the 60s and the 80s, it was very difficult. It's almost amazing that they even pulled it off. I mean, there were years it was so wet and rainy there that sometimes they couldn't do a vintage. If you talk to the Campbells and some of the original winemakers from the valley, they're like, "You guys have it so easy now." Like it was raining so much when we were making grapes, and I've heard some amazing stories of just how much this region has evolved. But no, today it's where you can land in Portland Airport and you can probably be in Willamette Valley tasting wine in about an hour and a half. So it's a really easy drive in. And like I said, the Willamette Valley is made up of several little appellations. Each one of them have different soil types. We're going to talk a lot about soil as we go through here. Dr. Revana mentioned it in the video. The neat thing about this vineyard and why we're able to craft all these different little expressions of grapes is because we have a multitude of soils. This is the one vineyard Dr. Revana mentioned, like there's 26 types of soil in the entire Willamette Valley. This vineyard, 52 acres in size, has 18 of those soils in one spot. And that's just Mother Nature did that. It's a collision pattern of different soils ranging from volcanic, marine sedimentary, and all kinds of different things. So it's really neat how we farm this estate. And Dr. Revana always said this, like he took a very surgical approach to this vineyard. We did all this little digging and around the vineyard, so we know exactly what rows have what soil, and we planted grapes that we knew were going to go really, really well with that soil type. So when we identify these things, we separate every block by every clone by every soil type. So we can I can show you what Pinot Gris tastes like on marine sedimentary soils, or let's say Pinot. I can show you what Pinot Noir tastes like on a difference of volcanic soils versus a soil that looks like it came from the ocean floor. It's crazy cool.
So everything comes in, gets vinified separately, and then either becomes its own thing or gets blended
in. Yep. It's just a master game of blending all these different expressions of Pinot Noir, which is really what we focus on here.
And I think that's an important thing to talk about, because a lot of times we talk about blends, and when we say blends, we think of Rhone, where they blend Grenache and Syrah, whatever. We talk Bordeaux, that they blend this. So many wines are blends, even though the grape is the same.
Yep.
It's the same grape. Well, the same grape, different clones, different this that comes from here and here, and the north of the valley, the south of the valley, wherever it goes. And there's such an art form to blend those different styles of that same grape together to come out with what you're looking for in the end. So just because it's got a single name and a single place on the label doesn't mean there hasn't been a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of blending going into those wines. And I think it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at our Pinot Noirs, they're a blend of 42 different individual blocks. It's nuts. But it's still all Pinot to the consumer. That's
a lot of tank space, isn't it?
It's a lot of tank space, and our tanks are honestly our tanks are this tall. You're used to going to a winery and seeing these large stainless steel tanks. Our stuff is literally this tall and probably about as big as these two barrels that are behind us. Very small. And so that way we can literally isolate every single flavor profile we can get off that winery. And then we just go, the winemaker has the crazy task of tasting the best barrels, the best lots, and then building those into a cuvee that we feel really proud of, every year. So every year is very different. Every vintage is different. The weather patterns are different. So it's not like, okay, let's do this blend every time, every year. There's no way you can do that. And so it's a fun little process.
No, absolutely, absolutely. So, speaking, we talked a lot about Pinot Noir. Shall we pour a little bit?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Loads
to
of
it.
glasses or
Yes.
dump or whatever you want to do.
You want fresh?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Give Dan some washing up. It keeps him employed. So we're heading on to our third and final wine from Alexandra Estate, which is the Pinot Noir. So as mentioned earlier, we're going to do the 2 whites and the red, and then we're going to jump back to a white afterwards, just so we keep the same projects together. A lot of people ask me, because I'm after spending some time in the States, I'm a massive fan of wines from Oregon, because I think they sit in that lovely kind of sweet spot. And it's not always fair to compare a region to other regions because they each do their own thing. But what I love about Oregon is it's got this almost old worldy kind of climate, but with new world technology. Yeah. And for me, it sits in the best of both worlds of Pinot Noir.
That's great. That's a really great way to look at it. Obviously, we're we're blessed with technology in the wine industry now that just really, it's kind of funny. Like we really do our best to let Mother Nature does what it's going to do in the vineyard. Our job at that point is selecting the right time to pick these grapes, bringing them in. This is a gravity flow winery. You'll see some pictures of the winery as we go throughout here, but it's a 3-level. It's done in 3 levels, and the way that we work, gravity flow or gravity. A gravity flow winery is basically without using any pumps to move any product. The wine is basically starts out on top on the top tier. We bring the fruit in, it goes into the crush pad, and then basically drops down to the next level just naturally through gravity. It's not been forced, and that goes into the tank. And then the fermentation happens on the fermentation deck. Once that's done, we're going to drain those tanks, and they'll go to the following level of the winery, and where they're barrel aged and go to sit, basically live out until they're getting bottled. So by gravity flow, and our farming methods are all live, sustainable. We use some biodynamic practices as well. Just a very nice way of just letting the vineyard speak, and our job and the winemaker team, who you saw, Tress and others, their job is to interpret what that vineyard has given them that year and really just kind of not intervene as much as possible. And with the case of this Pinot Noir, this vineyard along with 18 different types of soil, we have 11 different clones of Pinot. So like you just said,
it's a lot of options.
It's a lot of options.
A lot of things to play with.
Yeah. Think about the variables. 11 different types of all Pinot Noir, all grapes, and this is where we get into the whole talk about clones, which is really, really geeky. But every Pinot Noir you've ever had in your life has been a blend of different clones. I guarantee you. There's some clones that work really well on their own, but for the most part, pretty much every Pinot Noir I'd say that most people have drank has been a blend.
I would think so. There's some very kind of like small places in Burgundy that go, we only do this.
Yes,
but with that, it really does limit you as a winemaker, because if the season and the conditions aren't right for that particular clone at that time, you're not going to make great wine. The skill of the wine, and I go back to blending. It's like if you're cooking and you just have a piece of chicken, it needs to be the best piece of chicken ever.
Yeah,
but the minute you've got the option of adding a bit of salt, a bit of pepper, a bit of spice, you've got that option to create something really cool if you want to, and that's not any easier than doing single varietal, single plot. I think it's maybe even harder because you've got to be sharp as a winemaker to make those decisions, because you do your little trials, but then once you put it all together, you can't take it apart again. That's what you've got.
You can't deconstruct it. Yeah, it's put together. So, just kind of talking about all the things that go into this. The wine that's in your glass now is the 2018 Alexandra Terroir Series Pinot Noir. And what this is this is our Willamette Valley Cuvée. This is I always say this is a business card wine for us in a way, because this wine we produced a little over 4,000 cases of. The 2018 vintage was amazing, just warm, ripe, great ripeness. really good acidity. The daytime temperature and nighttime temperature is a nice little swing shift. So you get nice warm days and then super cold nights, which Pinot loves that. Pinot Noir is always going to rely on it needs some acidity, just like we tasted acidity in the white wines. Watch how the acidity is in this wine. It will also persistently make your mouth water, and that's so important with Pinot Noir. When you look at this wine, what we've done is this is a little over about 50% estate grown fruit from the Alexandra vineyard, and then there's three other vineyard sites that we'll use to put into this. Some of these vineyards we make. If you ever come out and visit the winery, you might see some single vineyard expressions of these wines that we make. Three other vineyards, Zena Crown being probably the most important particle of this piece of this cuvee. Zena Crown Vineyard's amazing. There's a lot of the Pommard clone grown on that vineyard. It's these wines, the Zena Crown Vineyard will produce wines from $60 to over $100 a bottle US. Wow. It's crazy expensive fruit. And so we didn't make this wine thinking let's make value. I mean, it's got a great value, but we didn't go about this in a way like we're not trying to make inexpensive wines. We put a lot of energy into making. We spent really good money on fruit to make this wine because it was really important to have a wine that was enough out there so people could find us. And we welcome a ton of visitors every year that just literally have this Pinot and say, "Oh my God, I love this! I want to learn more about what you do." So it's got a little Zena Crown fruit in, a little bit of Finwood Vineyard, and a little Crawford Beck. So you have 4 vineyards that go into making this wine. Like I said, our production is somewhere around 4,000 cases of this vintage. So really interesting little wine. But love to see what you think. I love the cumin. Yeah, the spice box characteristics, the cardamom. Those are typical. A lot of those spice flavors will come from the French oak barrels. This wine has about 10 months in French oak barrels. Around 20-30% of those barrels are new. So that new oak is adding a lot of that cinnamon and cardamom and spice box to the wine, but it's really nicely integrated. I don't think Pinot Noirs don't really need, like at this level, they don't need too much oak. It's really about balancing and trying to really keep yourself restrained on not putting too much oak on this wine.
Yeah, it's lovely fruit. It's rich. It couldn't be anything else but Pinot Noir. And sometimes, you go a little bit further south, you get into California, and some of those Pinot Noirs become, it's a style that people like, but they can become so big and so overblown, totally. And they suddenly hit 15.5% alcohol for Pinot Noir, and it's scary. This grapefruit, powerful. Sometimes you go to France and they become a bit wishy-washy, and this is why I like this kind of middle ground style. Grapefruit, great spice, still light enough to be Pinot Noir, but not wishy-washy and not smack you in the face. Yeah. It's not suddenly turning into Merlot.
Totally. And a really interesting way to kind of unpack Oregon wines, and like Oregon Pinot and Chardonnay. I think it's a perfect in-between moment between California and Burgundy. We're obviously, way back in the day, I think when Oregon was really starting to get its groove on, a lot of winemakers would be asked, what are your wines like in Oregon? They're Burgundian. They lean toward that Burgundian style. And now, today, Oregon is so well established that if you ask a winemaker that now, what are your wines? What are your Pinots like? We're like, well, they're Oregonian.
Yeah,
they won't reference Burgundy anymore.
And we're seeing a lot of regions in the New World becoming that. 10 years ago, they were like, oh, we'd like to be like, I don't know, exactly. Someone making a Chardonnay somewhere else wanted to be like Napa or wanted to be like Burgundy. But now they want to be, we want to be indicative of our region, our clones, our style. Yeah. And it is kind of going Oregon's best of both worlds, but it's not about it being slightly Burgundian, slightly Californian. It's about being Oregonian, and that's what Absolutely. It is. And as people get to taste more wines from different regions and they have a style about them, that's what sommeliers do in blind tastings. They pick it up this one and go, well, that's Right Bank Bordeaux and that's Rhone Valley and that's that. We're going to start being able to differentiate that this is from Oregon as we get to taste more of them.
Yeah, and inside that, it's really about wines that are made in this style, and people do this. It's really about focusing on what does this piece of land taste like? What can this piece of land do? This is merely a snapshot of what that one vintage did, and that's what's the beauty of it. And we may never be able to make this wine again. I mean, and all the weather conditions, everything that has to come into play here. This is why small production wines are so unique, because it's literally a snapshot of what happened that year.
No, absolutely, and it sits both ways. That vintage variation is cool and fun and different, but then sometimes it's difficult to get people to kind of follow wine. Oh, I like that. Absolutely. It's not it's not made to a recipe, and every year it's going to be different. So you've got to taste more of them to start to fall in love with them. And
Absolutely.
one year when it's a little bit warm, this is a big jump. I like that style. And then the next year it's a little bit more lean. But it's great to see those ups and downs. And if you drink a lot of wine from the region, you get your parameters. You go, well,
Absolutely.
top
And
end
you-
it can
and
be
you
there,
learn
there,
something
that,
too,
and you
you
kind
know?
of find out it's generally going to be a little bit like this. But this is
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you. It's a very easy drinking Pinot. Now, in this vineyard, back to all the different variables of what we can produce. This is just the entry point. After this, we will make an entirely wine just from the estate vineyard, and then we can single out different parcels, and we have a wine that we focus just on the volcanic soils. And then we move into the west side, the east side. East side is the vineyard's volcanic. West side is sedimentary soil. So you have ocean floor, remnants of the ocean floor on one side of the vineyard, and then deep pits of dark iron volcanic clay in one part of the vineyard. And so if you take those wines apart and you dissect the estate and you look at them side by side, it's two completely different personalities of Pinot. Volcanics have this rich, round flavor profile they'll offer to the wine versus sedimentary soil. They're a little leaner, they're tighter, a little more bright red fruit. So it's so cool. You can see the exact same clones, just change the soil, and they're crazy different.
And that's what's amazing about wine. It's not one thing makes a difference. It's the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of little details on whether you put it in, even down to oak. Is it new oak, old oak, French oak, American oak? That oak, from that plot in the vineyard, from something that's 50 yards further up the hill, is absolutely insane.
It's so neat.
That's what makes wine interesting, spectacular. And you can know if at this point in time you knew everything there was to know about wine, it changes tomorrow and the next day and the next day.
You get the reset button.
Yeah,
and every vintage is another chance to learn something. And that's why I chose this industry, because I'm never going to get tired of this. You'll never get bored with wine once you learn enough to be a little dangerous, and you'll never get tired of it.
Absolutely. And we've obviously got the chat function. So if you've got any questions for Dylan that you need answering, we're going quite deep into this, which is exciting. But if there's any bits that either is too far over the top or not enough, just give us a shout and we'll get those questions answered for you. So, but yeah, a newish winery for me, and just it's exciting to see that range that you can grow anything from Riesling to Chardonnay to Gris to Pinot Noir. There's a lot of options in Oregon.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a vineyard. It's a little over 52 acres in actual planted vines, and most of all that's Pinot. There's a couple acres of Gris, a couple acres of Chardonnay, but our real focus is Pinot Noir. We've been very fortunate. Like I said, we make this Pinot Noir, we make our estate, we make the volcanic and the sedimentary soil wines, and then we can just have fun after that. Sometimes we'll make a wine called Best Block. We'll just literally pick out the best block that we think. The one block that we think is the best every year, and we'll make a wine just off that. That could be 2-3 rows, and just let's do it.
And that changes every year.
It changes every year.
Fancy doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's
It's
awesome.
a playground of soils. So a winemaker's winemakers are like chefs, right? They're playing with all these different flavors, and they get to blend and make the perfect sauce. And that's, I'm really simplified winemaking there, but that's essentially what.
Well, I like to playground of soils. That's my new go-to phrase there.
For sure. If you like to play in the dirt, we have a vineyard for you. Very cool.
Oh, fantastic! So that was Alexander. So from being fairly far north, we're going to go a little bit southish.
Yes, let's go. Let's definitely go more south, right? Actually, let's just get into the Argentina. We're going to go back to white wine now. Right?
Absolutely. So a fresh glass would be
Excellent.
wonderful. Lovely, lovely. So while I pour this, you want to give a little overview? So we're Corazon del Sol.
Corazon del Sol. So we're inside. So I'm sure a lot of you probably been to Argentina. You've probably been to Mendoza, Buenos Aires. Mendoza, just basically, we have the Andes Mountains that separate Chile and Argentina. Outside of the town of Mendoza, you basically just leave the outskirts of the city, and you're automatically in wine country. It starts with Mendoza. The area it's a pretty big area. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to dial into a very, very specific zone inside the Mendoza area called Uco Valley. Uco Valley, so we're going to basically just kind of drive south out of Mendoza, head toward the mountains, and we'll get inside what's called the Uco Valley. Inside the Uco Valley, where we are right now in the glass, is a sub-appellation called Los Chacayes. Los Chicayes was formed, and just like all the different appellations in Oregon, and why did we have all these different little areas? Because they have different climate, they have different soil, and the wines essentially will taste different from village to village or appellation to appellation. Where we are here in the Andes Mountains, we're sitting anywhere from 3,300 to 4,000 feet up at the base of the Andes Mountains, where an ancient riverbed used to run. Rio Grande River used to run at the base of the Andes. And so what's left now, most of that's all dried up. Every once in a while, we'll get a lot of snow. You'll get some snow melt, and some of these creeks will actually kind of populate with water again. For the most part, it's just really rocky, very rugged, high elevation, crazy shift of daytime and nighttime temperatures. But when you look at some of the vineyard pictures that will show you, when you look at all these different rocks, we found Dr. Revana, when he found this property, he was like, this is beautiful. We obviously know that Argentina is going to make great Malbec, and we produce excellent Malbec. Our Malbecs have been in the top 100. All the wineries have really made top 100. But if you look at the soil here, this is really, really difficult to grow grapes. This is some of the pictures that a couple years after planting, we had a very difficult time planting vines in this rugged soil. We had like a 25% take rate, and that basically means like 75% of the vines we planted there would die. They just could not get enough nutrients and water. So it really took finding the right grapes and the right clones to make this happen. What's in your glass now, because of that rocky territory, when Dr. Revana saw this property, he's like, look, I know we're going to do Malbec. We're going to make world-class Malbec. I got that. But why don't we play with Rhone varieties? Let's plant Grenache. Let's plant Syrah. Let's plant some white Rhone varieties and see how those go. And this is one of the results of that. We were the first winery in Argentina to produce a GSM, and that was in 2011. And then later on went to play around with the white Rhone varietals. This is a blend of Viognier, Grenache Blanc, Marsanne, and Roussanne. These are all grapes you'd find in the Mediterranean region of southern France.
So where's the inspiration to plant something? Was it kind of, there was the idea that the climate was right or the soil was right, or was it would be fun to try and do something like that? Was it more
definitely
science
fun,
or more a bit of science and a bit of experimentation, all
absolutely
kind of in the same barrel?
Kind of a little bit of everything. Dr. Revana is a very curious individual. He's got tons of great energy, always wants to try something new. He's very experimental. And really it's just it was just a gut feeling when you look at that soil and you look at kind of what's around you. If any of you have ever been to the south of France, you'll see it's very almost similar, just dry, arid, just dry desert bushes or making up the terroir, and the landscape is just very dramatic and intense. And these kind of grapes love that. They love to be stressed out. They love to see a lot of sunlight. When the sun goes down, those rocks become little heaters and they conduct heat right back onto the vine. And it's just this very incredible environment that you find down there. So, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. We had the climate, we had a very unique soil type, and no one had ever planted these grapes before. And so we're like, why not? Let's try it. And we can make this. We have 17 acres. So it's small.
Not loads,
yeah. It's not like we had to plant 200 acres and try out something. We have 17. So.
But I think what's great about this, if you compare it to Southern Rye, Chateauneuf de Pape Blanc, that kind of stuff, each grape in there, it's in there, and you can tell it's in there for a reason. You get the aromatics, you get that richness, you get that smokiness, you get that weightiness, you get that texture. So there's a little bit for everyone. I don't know if this is so. There is, and I don't know. I'm just going to pop it up here because it's not the world's most positive tasting. But I do think it has that kind of slight herbaceous vegetal thing going on. And you sometimes get that from the Marsanne and the Roussanne, as especially when they get a little bit riper and where you're a little bit warmer than maybe what you'd find in the Rhone Valley, you might get that little bit more of an herbaceous flavour, which might be, from my hint of that, I don't particularly get the cabbagey thing myself, but you could get that from.
There's definitely some vegetable elements here. The Marsanne Roussanne has this way of being kind of like a wax apple. It's got this like waxy sort of beeswax kind of texture. Like look at the way you roof of your mouth. I feel like I feel the Marsanne Roussanne on the roof of my mouth. I feel the Viognier on my tongue.
Yeah, it's stuff.
It's
freshness.
Just it's just freshness and it's like honeydew melon, a lot of chalky minerality that's kind of coming along with it. There's a lot of stuff going on this wine. We could spend an hour just talking about all the craziness in here.
We've got another question for you here, and this probably will have to get split into 3 parts because of the 3 different sites. And we could talk about this for the next 7.5 years, how climate change is impacting anything. But what are the main points? Are you changing what you're planting? Are you picking earlier, or is it or just lots of different things? And is there stuff that you're kind of planting now that isn't going to do anything for you now, but kind of like future proofing?
Well, we actually just planted more of this. We literally, as of 3 days ago, we were so impressed with the potential of this wine that we were buying a lot of this from a vineyard like right around the corner from us, and we decided we were so entranced by this. We were really confident that we're planting our own little bush vines of this. And this is the bush vine, just so you know, like if you ever see those pictures where vineyards, there's no trellis system, there's no wires. This is literally growing the grape in a super old world way. This is how it used to be done. Most all Spain's planted this way, but like a little shrub. And so we're actually planting bush vines or goblets of Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier right in front of the vineyard now. So we're going to put it right on those chalky, rocky, crazy soils and start growing our own as well. So this is something that we really believe in. Another great variety of I'm not chasing tonight, but Semillon is going nuts in Argentina right now. It's a grape that you typically blend in a white Bordeaux. Most people never really had it on its own. You've probably had it, but if you had it in a little white Bordeaux, like it's often blended with Sauvignon Blanc, as you know.
Yeah, the only place you really see a lot of it by itself is over kind of like Hunter Valley.
Hunter Valley's excellent.
Stuff like that. But it's once again, it's a grape that it gets tucked into white Bordeaux, and people might have heard of white Bordeaux, but not always what's blended in.
Totally.
Torontes is doing pretty well in Argentina, especially a bit further north. And there's a few people making a bit of Sauvignon, a bit of Viognier, but the kind of the richer Rhone varietal seems to be, you're one of the few people that I'm aware of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely new territory. There's a lot of really good Semillon coming out. Not a whole lot of I think a lot of more people are jumping on the Rhone bandwagon. I mean, we started this trend in 2011.
Before it was a trend.
Yeah, no, we were just doing our own thing, at that point. But it turned out that this is the Luminoso Blanc. The Luminoso was the original red GSM. That was the first GSM that we ever produced out of Argentina. So we took us a few years to like play around with the white blend, but this is it. This is the second or third vintage that we've done this.
So here's a side-by-side tasting that's going on elsewhere.
What we have there?
So Kathy, who's an investor with Al Passion, her colleagues are doing a side-by-side tasting with your colours on the side right now.
That's great.
You're going to have to let us know how that all comes together. Perfect.
Yeah.
So lots of different styles of flavouring there. We've got the opal fruits, we've got the citrus, we've got the stone fruits, we've got the minerality, we've got complex in there. We've got that salinity, that savoury characteristic. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's such I love when I have like salty whites. They're really pretty, and it's just, and that you can't really trace where that stuff comes from. It looks like you said, it's a combination of so many different variables. I wish it was as simple as like grow it on this soil and you'll get salty wines. It's not just that. There's so much biology going on in these vineyards and the grapes themselves, and that's why complexity is so interesting.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it is every time you go back to this wine, you find something else. There's something else to smell or taste. It's and I think very versatile. You could sit and drink a couple of glasses of this quite easily, but it's got so much richness, and that acidity go really well with food. And when you talk about Argentina and food, people scream steak and red wine and Malbec and Cab Franc. Is there anything traditional, in Argentina that people are eating with this?
I don't know that they've really started to consider it in that way. I think, when I think Argentina, like anything that's a little more on the lighter side is obviously ceviche. Just imagine how good this would be with just a beautiful piece of like citrus cured fish in your mouth. Like this would be so fun with ceviche with this, and also with a little bit of spice to it. Like have a little, little jalapeno flecks in there, just to add some pepper spice to it. I think it'd be wonderful with that. But it's the wine itself that there's such an old world presence in this wine, and I think that's what we're really trying to reflect. Is like in every vineyard in all the vineyards we have, it's really about restraint. The fact that we're getting salinity and all these like beautiful complex lemon, mineral, and grapefruit flavors that's what these grapes are made to do. And this is a blend of 4 different grapes. There's a lot going on. Food pairing wise, I think you can be really versatile with this.
We got a shout for seafood empanadas in the chat.
Nice, Very good. That
We
sounds.
need someone to make us some and bring them down.
Yeah, who's making those tonight? Yeah.
Kathy's making seafood empanadas for everybody. So
Yeah.
if you give Kathy a shout when you order 6 bottles of this, she'll send you some seafood empanadas. Is that correct?
Yeah, sounds
Just
great.
promising things for people at home. But there we go.
Grilled prawns. I mean, yeah. Now
It could go with a lot.
You can
of
tell
stuff.
I haven't had dinner. I come up with the best food pairings, but I haven't really eaten all day. And yeah, so.
It is. We always do this on these tastings. That we go, oh, what would you have with that? And we start talking about it. And go, we've got another 3 wines to get through. Please stop talking about food. I'm not going to make it through the end of the day.
All right,
fantastic. Should we have a?
Let's move on to Malbec.
So something that when we talk Argentina, what we might think is a little bit more traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And going into Malbec.
So this was interesting. I told you about, I kind of mentioned the how rugged the vineyard was and really how hard it was to get grapes to take there. So this Malbec was cut. We took when we were looking for plantings for this, we actually went to an area called Pedrillo and Agrelo. This is where some of the first plantings of Malbec happened in Argentina. And so instead of buying new nursery clones and things like that, we ended up going with Masal selection, literally cuttings from some of the original oldest vines that are grown in Argentina. We took cuttings of that, and that's what planted our Malbec vineyard. So 17 acres in total here. This is one of our smallest sites. Alexana, like I said, a little bit, almost 55 acres planted. This is only 17. 17 acres split up into 3 very distinct blocks where we have river stones, those huge rocky stones that you saw kind of in the picture. There's one part that's more sandstone, and then there's another part of the vineyard. It's almost like a mosaic of all the different soil. So there's 3 distinct sites inside the 17 acres that we're looking at. And the Malbec here is all Los Chicayes fruit. So this is very different than if you just had a Mendoza Malbec. That's one expression. That Malbec could come from anywhere in Mendoza. What's unique about the one we're about to try is this is 100% Los Chicayes fruit. So this is from that very specific appellation. It was established, I think, officially in 2019 as a sub appellation of Uco Valley. And Chicayes just has a very different profile to it. It's from the highest elevation you're going to find. All that vibrant acidity. You can do the acid test on here with your tongue again. With this one, you're going to see just electric. And what I love about this Malbec, just like anything else, when it gets popular, tons of producers start making it. And then you sort of like, sometimes the identity of these grapes kind of get diluted. There's too much Malbec going on. There's too much Pinot Grigio. People get kind of sloppy winemaking. But, for this wine, what I love about it personally is that Malbec's made to go with meat. It's made to go with just rich things off the grill. And if your mouth is not watering when you're having food like that, it's kind of pointless to have that wine. It doesn't have, this wine has great acid. It cuts right through the fat. It's made for things off the grill.
And I think we're very lucky there's been some smart winemakers in Argentina, because a few years back, I had a little bit of a worry about Argentina in this kind of like race to the bottom with Malbec. Who could produce the most cheapest, barely drinkable Malbec and get it on supermarket shelves? Not dissimilar to what Australia did 20, 25 years ago. And it's taken them a long time to get back up. And, some wonderful wines from Australia, but people think that Australian Shiraz should be £5. It should have some kind of animal on the label, and that's what it should be. Argentina was very close to going down that route at some point.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct.
And the fact that it's been
very quickly.
restrained a little bit and gone. And what we're seeing now is, not only do we talk about Argentinian Malbec, we talk about Malbec from Mendoza, and then we talk about Malbec from Uco Valley or Cuyo de Leon or
Luanacayo. There's
wherever
all these
it is.
different.
We're really starting to see this kind of regional style that Argentinian Malbec isn't Argentinian Malbec, that's it. And, and it's different styles. If you like the stuff from high elevation that's got a little bit more of that acidity about it, if you like some valley floor that's got a little bit more jamminess and fruitiness, there's an Argentinian Malbec there for you. And people are able to start looking at this.
Totally.
And I think that's really cool because, Mendoza's got about as much land under vine as France does. It's an insanely big place. And starting to see, that here it all comes from this particular region, this particular area. I think that's what can make Malbec get exciting for people, rather than go, I like Malbec.
I like Malbec. Well, what kind of Malbec? Where do you like your Malbec from?
Exactly.
Same thing conversation we're having like Chardonnay. Like Chardonnay is obviously such a polarizing grape, right? I mean, what kind of Chardonnay do you like? Oh, I like the stuff from Burgundy. Oh, I like California, or I like Oregon. Malbec, very similar. And everyone should be asking those questions. Like, yes, if you love Malbec, what is it about the Malbec you like? There's going to be different expressions, just like Pinot Noir and everything else. And you hit it right on the dot. I mean, if it's low lying areas with not a lot of elevation, you're probably going to see, you might see, or the winemaker's style, it could be that. Maybe they just like to make more riper styles with more oak. This wine has no new oak on it, and we don't even introduce. We show it an oak barrel and we leave it alone. Basically,
it doesn't need. You could have had, but you don't
need it.
You're pretty enough without it.
Totally. I mean, look at this wine. What you'll notice, and when you look at this wine, look at the color profile of this wine. Those purple, deep dark. It's opaque. You can barely see through it. That right there comes from a lot of sunlight hours. Any wine that you look at the rest of your life, when you look at a dark color like this, that's showing you how much sunshine that grape was exposed to. Thick skins don't come from wines grown in cool climates. Like if you went back and looked at the Pinot Noir, it's definitely more of a deeper ruby color, but you should still almost be able to see through it. Warm climate wines like Malbec and Cab and Petit Verdot and things like that, they need a lot of sunshine to develop. But that doesn't mean it has to be overripe. And what you're seeing here is the beautiful balance of a lot of great intense sunlight hours during the day and a big diurnal change at night. The sun goes down, it gets crazy cold. You take you 10 minutes to get a sunburn outside in the middle of the day, in Uco Valley, but then at nighttime it'd drop down. You're like, where's my jacket? I'm freezing. And so this is what you're seeing. You're seeing depth, you're seeing concentration, but also a lot of energy from the acid.
And it is. And I get beaten up because I say balance about everything. It's like if people had a pound for every time I said balance, I'd be.
Well, you're probably drinking a lot of good wine if you're saying balance
exactly.
a lot.
But it's the fruit, and it is once again, it's the 100. What makes this wine what it is? The list is so long, isn't it? It's Absolutely. The place, the grape, the people, the everything that goes with it. Yeah. And if you're drinking it, enjoying it, it's the people you're drinking it with, the time you're having it, the food you're having with it, and as you just mentioned, very cold at night. Very cold at night. Yeah. But that allows you to have that longer growing season, and more complexity as you go into it. It gives you the chance to do lots of different things, which is great. I just think
it's fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying this with food, or if you're watching this, the next time that you open these wines, like have some food with this. Have a beautiful charcuterie board. Throw some spicy salami on there. Just this thing's made for meats or even grilled vegetables. You don't have to always have meat with this wine. Grilled vegetables, eggplant, all kinds of crazy stuff can go with this wine because it's, like you said, it is balanced. It's rich, it's dark, but it's also got acidity. All these deep, dark prune and plum flavors are incredibly opulent, but the wine has a lot of energy and acid behind it, so it's really fun to pair with food.
Chocolate and Malbec is a pairing.
Yeah, no, you can totally do
bittersweet
dark chocolate. Kind of reminds you of that when you taste it. There's tons of notes of that in there.
But yeah, a lot of prune in there. That dark stewed fruit, cherry. Mint, yeah, there is that little bit of herbaceousness in there.
I'm glad you touched on that. Yeah, this is what I find is kind of a calling card for Los Chicaises. There are a lot of these really bright green, oily herbs, almost kind of like eucalyptus. There's this plant, there's this shrub that grows around the vineyard, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, but it's Aresia. And I went up, and last time I was there, I was asking, why do our wines have this very, very specific profile? And I've seen these in other wines as well from the area. It's just that I can't explain it. Tell me what this herb thing is, and winemaker said, well, a lot of that, it's Aresia. And so he's pointed this little shrub over here, and I walked over and I grabbed the leaves and snapped it and smelled. Oh my God, that's the same smell that I'm getting off this wine.
Yeah.
There's such a connection with.
Because it's there.
Yeah, it's in the air.
You talk about, and I'm going off at a tangent here, to Australian Shiraz. People go, oh, Australian Shiraz has this thing of eucalyptus. Well, only if it's in amongst the gum trees and the eucalyptus tree, because they spray into the air, and then that's on your grape. You're not taking your grapes and giving them a quick wash before you press them, because that's not ideal winemaking. No. So you get it's not only what's in the grape, it's what's surrounding, and that's why people talk about smoke taint and fire. That's because
same thing. If it can happen with smoke taint, it can happen with other things.
Yeah, with anything that's passing.
It's a permeable membrane. The grape, depending on when the grape is, what stage it's in, it can totally be susceptible to other outside elements.
Yeah. So Dawn's on here got a good barbecue wine with a question mark. To be fair, I don't think that needs the question mark. I think this is a fantastic barbecue wine because it's got this richness. but it's also quaffable. It's got grapefruit. You could drink this, whatever. Interesting. I'm going to throw a point out here about this. Because it's got so much fruit in there, could you drink this on a hot sunny day? Not chilled, but a little bit cooler.
I think cellar temperature is awesome with these wines.
So about 15, 16 degrees.
I'm going to say 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
You're like my wife. My wife has been here 7 years now and still does Fahrenheit. It's like, oh, it's going to be 60 today. I'm like, what? What does that even mean?
I'm sure that gets really nerve-wracking.
It goes both ways. Yeah, it's going to be 40. Is that really, really hot or really, really cold? No one knows in my household.
Oh, no.
So 15, 60, yeah, so 55, 58-ish.
And honestly, when you get into like, especially going back to the Pinot, I've gotten to where I like all my reds right out of the cellar. Just pull it right out of the wine fridge and get in there and keep it a little. The more like when you get into these big full body grape varietals, you definitely don't want to go to the warm phase. At that point, your alcohol starts to dissipate and you start smelling alcohol esters in the wine, and that's just no fun for anybody. We want to feel the alcohol. I don't want to smell it. But to keep that thing at a calmer temperature, and I just think they're silkier, they're perfectly expressive. Obviously, too cold, you don't taste anything. But I don't know, 55, 56 degrees is.
I think it's that thing that we're stuck with this mentality of red wine at room temperature. But room temperature is a lot different than it was 200 years ago when we decided that was the thing.
Great point. Yeah.
Well, not for much longer though, with electric bills going up. Room temperature is going to be whatever it is outside in the winter. Room temperature will be like 10 degrees.
It's definitely not going to be ideal temperature to drink wine. So you probably should just start chilling everything now and getting used to it.
Exactly.
Just don't put ice in your wine. None of that.
There we are. If anyone's stuck, we got maths in the chat. There we are.
ABV.
ABV on that? Do you know off the top of your head? I've got the bottle behind me.
Yeah, let's grab it. I want to say 14.5.
He wants to say 14.5.
13.5.
He knows his stuff. 14.5.
Okay. It's funny, like I think there was a question earlier about like climate and stuff like that, but one of the last vintages that the 2016 vintage was one of the only like inconsistent vintages we had. It was an El Nino year, so it rained a lot. It was like the first time it was actually cold. But that's been really the last, I'd say, like difficult vintage we've seen in Argentina. For the most part, it's really straightforward. But yeah, in the 2016s, our alcohol dropped naturally because, like I said, we don't monkey around with these wines. But we had alcohol 12.5% in 2016. Wow, yeah, natural, because it just didn't ripen as much. So that's natural ABV. But this is normal, like 14.5. 14.5 is pretty normal.
I think there's a thing that we start to say people go 14.5, and a lot of people look at me and go 14.5. That's just becoming the standard in a lot of places
12.
now.
That's the new 12.
It is. I just don't think a lot of people have updated their psyche. It's not 10.5, 11 for whites and 12, 13 for reds. No. You get some of the warmer places, 14.5, 15% Chardonnays in some places, isn't there?
13.5 is
they're still done. Some of them are overblown, but there's some things, you can taste 16% reds that are still very well balanced.
Absolutely.
So
it's all about, you can still have high alcohol wines. You have to pick at a certain ripeness. Sometimes you have to let things sit out a little longer than you want to before you pick, so you can get that perfect balance of phenolic ripeness. So
and you pick it too early to keep your alcohol down. It's going to be bitter and green.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose the stuff that makes it a good drinking bottle of wine.
Totally.
Once again, I'm going to go, it's the hundreds of wine-making decisions. I think this is what my go-to tonight, isn't it? It's not one thing. It's everything.
It's everything. It really is. So many different things in play. But, great, silky, I think these two wines red.
Just showcase two, once again, very similar to what we saw earlier, two vastly different styles of wine, both done really, really well from, Malbec. Yeah, we expect that from Argentina, but we don't really expect a Viognier, Grenache, Marsanne Roussanne blend from Argentina, and it's cool to see that. So, I hope people enjoyed it. I hope people loved it, but, if you didn't, I hope...
Well, you learned something.
We've tried something.
You've tried something new that not a lot of people have had, for sure. I mean, not really people you could say, hey, I was drinking all these different Rhone varietals from Argentina. Like, what? That's not normal.
Yeah, high alcohol duty and taxes, always fun.
Yeah, no, after like 14.7, they start charging you more money for it.
So
different countries,
different things are different there, and because I know the States, it's what 16.9 is kind of like the cutoff before you become fortified.
Yeah,
And you see some of those big Zinfandels in California, 16.9 exactly. Really, really.
Because there's a margin of there's a little buffer zone in there that you can be a little lower. Or, there's a high-low little buffer there, but most of the time it's higher, but it says it's lower.
I've never seen someone label their wine 17.1. I promise you that.
And there's definitely a lot of them out there.
There's a few.
But I think, some just because the alcohol's high, then you don't get discouraged if you see it on the bottle. I think sometimes just tasting the wine and properly serving the wine, decant the wines, let it breathe. These showed great packs too. I mean, they were really beautiful out of the pack. I mean, it was so fresh and it was great. It didn't take long at all for this to open up.
Yeah,
properly.
and I think the thing is, it's I'm not telling people how to drink, but it's smart drinking. If you see something that's 17%, that's not your patio pounder. You find something that's 12.5%.
Let's make some dinner around that
exactly.
wine tonight.
Do that a little bit slowly, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
You know what? And what Colin's point here, I think this is exactly what we alluded to earlier. The avoiding Argentinian Malbec because of the supermarket race to the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, absolutely true. Is this a cheap bottle of Malbec? Absolutely not. Do I think it offers really good value for the way it drinks? Absolutely. And those are the two things that have to be considered. It's, value for money, whether it's £6 or £60. Does it drink like I'm happy to spend that kind of money? And yes, Malbec, there's a lot of supermarkets follow trends, don't they? And Malbec's hot right now, so let's make a Malbec, but our customers won't buy anything for more than £7.50, £8 or whatever that number is. So they try and make that style. And I'm not saying a lot of it is bad, but a lot of it's just not. It's not memorable. It does the job. Okay, it drinks. It tastes like a Malbec, but if the one next to it the next day is on sale, you're going to buy that one instead. It's not, wow, I've had that and I must have more Corazon del Sol Malbec because I love that. And this is what these wines can do. You then find your new favourite Malbec and you get a bit brand loyal to it. And that's Absolutely. Tasting it like this. But, I think that's fantastic what Colin's put in there. The fact that we've been able to, enlighten someone a little bit and go, there's more to Malbec than just that. Which I think is really
Absolutely.
cool.
It's hard, sub $20 these days for almost anything is going to be really tough to get a cerebral moment out of. This is a Malbec in the U.S. we sell for like $30, at the winery, and that's not inexpensive anymore for the wines out there. This is definitely serious Malbec. But there's a lot of complexity here. It's a lot of enjoyment. I would say that, another thing you have to watch with sometimes inexpensive wines that you'll open up, you'll have a really one good glass of it, and then automatically start seeing it kind of tapering off and like losing its kind of vibrancy.
Yeah.
You might get, and it's definitely a lot of those wines are really hard to drink on day two. Like if you just want to have one good glass of wine and come back to that wine for 2 or 3 nights, a lot of wines won't deliver that onto that. But
they're designed. They pack that punch the minute it comes out the bottle.
Yeah, they want. Ooh, great!
And then
all right, cool. Then you kind of like you get bored with it. This is something I've had. I've had this wine open 4 or 5 days at a time, and there's a lot of restaurants that pour this by the glass because it stays so lively. They don't have to pour wine out; it just gets better. This wine will be better. It'll be if you had a whole bottle of this, you could drink this over the next.
And that's really important for a restaurant or a bar. Not only for the bar because they pour great wine the whole time, but also for the winemaker because an unscrupulous restaurateur might go, well, it's good enough. It's good enough, so they'll pour it on day 3 or day 4 when it's not quite where it should be.
Yeah, because you're just trying to get the profit out of it.
Exactly.
It's a fun little wine. I've got this Malbec in everything from my buddy's pizza restaurant in Brooklyn to Michelin star restaurants. So it's all over the place. It's in some really fun spots from high to low. That's
fantastic.
Well. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's Argentina. So it's now time to go a little bit north and a little bit
all the way north
west.
We're going to follow the subduction plate all the way back up to California and head into Napa Valley. So we're going to be in St. Helena for this last wine. This vineyard was planted in 1998. This was the first vineyard that Dr. Revana established. Bought the property in 97, planted in 1998. The winemaker originally for this project was a lady named Heidi Barrett. Some of you might know that name. She's synonymous. She's one of the globe's most.
Is that Heidi Barrett as of Turley? Heidi Barrett
Yeah,
previously.
Turley,
Yeah, and the rest.
Dolly
but-
Val, Screaming Eagle,
Yeah.
La Serena. A force of nature for sure. Dr. Revana has been very fortunate to work with great winemakers on every one of this project. And I could go on and on, but I should have probably gave you more information. The winemaker at Alexandria was originally Lynn Pinner Ash, first female winemaker in Oregon in like late 80s. Now you saw Tress as our new winemaker, Tresenda Burns, who comes from some great wineries. He's worked for Rose Rock, Tristan, and some different properties. Santiago Achaval is our winemaker in Argentina, highest rated winemaker in Argentina. He loves making our wines. Santi is just a miraculous winemaker. He's very tuned in. Those wines, the Malbec, as we mentioned, they're very old world in style. They don't. If you blind taste me in those wines, I'd be like, dude, we're in France, we're in Cahors, we're some. It doesn't reek Argentina because Argentina does have a kind of a personality of being or a character of kind of being like overripe and big and chewy, but those wines are very restrained. There's acid. Here, we're back to Napa. So this was Heidi Barrett for the first 10 years. And then in 2011, Thomas Rivers Brown joined the team. Thomas Rivers Brown is...
I'm just stopping for a minute. This is something. The problem is you taste it, you won't be able to talk for about 10 minutes. It's
so much
epic.
wine. I know. So Thomas Rivers Brown joined us in 2011, and this is what we're tasting today is the 2015 Revana Terroir Series Cabernet Sauvignon, and we're now at our smallest vineyard. There's 8 blocks on the vineyard. It's 8.2 acres in size. So what you're tasting basically is the southern back 4 blocks of the wine. There's maybe 4 acres that goes into this wine. What we were doing with this cab is looking at soils again and talking about dirt. The front part of the Revana vineyard is ridden with this soil type called Perkins gravelly loam. It's gravelly, it's very alluvial, very well drained, versus the back part of the winery, which is kind of closer to the back part of toward the Napa Valley River that used to run, it still does, and when it rains a lot, there's not much water in there anymore. But you get more clay and less soils in the back part of the vineyard. Clay retains a little bit more water, produces really nice round flavor profiles. I think I might have mentioned that when I was talking about the Pinots as well earlier. But this is literally an expression of 3 blocks of Cabernet, 1 block of Petit Verdot, and we're buying a little bit of Merlot from a vineyard just right down the street in the Oak Knoll AVA. But we found that you can make a wine off the back southern block that was incredibly approachable and chocolatey and spicy and really just a great wine to drink upon release over the next 5-6 years versus the estate wine, which we're not tasting this time. Maybe next time we're going to go super high end and do rock some estate out.
Sounds like a good plan.
But that vineyard, if you look at that part of the vineyard, the tannins and the tension that's created from that side of the vineyard, just because the soil change, is dramatic. So now for a very long time, from 2001, our first vintage, to 2011, there was only 1 wine made off the entire vintage. Thomas's idea created the Terroir series in 2012 to basically just focus on that back part. So we basically cut our production of estate. The estate wine is only made from the front 4 blocks, and now Terroir series is made from the back 4 blocks. So we have a wine it's a little cheaper in price.
We're 2015 vintage.
And so this is something, I would say drink Terroir series upon release over the next 3 to 5 years. If you get a bottle of estate, hold on to it for a little while longer. Drink it, but it's something that you could hold on to many, many years. I just tried our 2001 vintage, our first vintage, 3-4 weeks ago. Still crazy alive.
Yeah,
it was nuts. This wine's gonna live a long.
You can see this has got years on it, hasn't it? It's big, it's bold, but what's interesting is sometimes you'd open something this age or maybe a couple of years younger, and you'd regret opening it, going, "Oh, I wish I'd held on to that for another 5 years."
Yeah,
I don't feel that about this bottle. I'm really excited for it, and I, do I think it will be better in 5-10 years? No, it'll just be different. It'll be different, and I think when we talk about aging wine, when you age a wine, you take a lot of that primary fruit, and then that turns into those tertiary complex kind of things.
Absolutely.
So if you like a big, bold, jammy, rich style of wine, drink this right now.
Yeah.
If you want something with a bit more earth, leave it for 10 years.
Totally.
But it's a wine that, hey, buy a case of it and open a bottle each year and see how it goes.
That's really the secret. That's the formula of really starting to have fun with stuff, because you should buy your cab.
What a comment. I'm just going to pop that up there for you.
What is that? pouring this, it comes out looking like I tapped a vein. Yes, sanguine, bloody. I don't know, maybe you're drinking a lot of wine if your blood looks that color. You should maybe go to a doctor about that. That's pretty dark. But yeah, this what's fun about this is like, I think we drink we I'm a huge proponent of aging wines. I really don't drink young wines anymore. I find like after you wait, if you just have the patience to wait like 3 to 5 years after this stuff is made, you're gonna get much more of an experience out of them. They're just I always say like wait till the wine like loses its baby fat. Like when it first comes out, it's big, it's fruity, it's monstrous, and if that's the way you like to drink them, totally drink them. If you're a little worn down by that, and those wines are a little too intense, then yeah, put it away and store it the right way. Bring it out like 3 to 5 years later. 2015, this is the perfect example of what you're tasting now. You're tasting a wine that's in a developing stage at this point. It's not youthful any longer. We're into the development stage. From this point, that's why you're seeing like these little spice box flavors, the bittersweet dark chocolate, little cigar box. I always get like black olive tapenade on this and like kind of sage things like kind of makes it's tapenade almost.
It's this deep, spicy.
And there's a little of that prune and plum kind of coming through as well.
Let's have a little look at the tasting note, because this for me is one of the wines that I almost go, I don't want to do tasting notes. I just want to sit here and sip it and go, yeah, that's great. Keep it all to myself. And the joy of having these pop up that we can see what everyone else is tasting and enjoying.
Black olive. Nice.
Yeah, black olive, black currant, smooth, grippy tannins. Yeah, there is that texture, but it's very well integrated. Yeah. Menthol, coffee. Yeah, we're starting to see some of those tertiary characteristics. Coconut, a little bit of oak in there. Well, a big chunk of oak in there.
Yeah, it's French oak though. So there's definitely some. Yeah, there's no American oak on this. So this is I want to say, if I remember correctly, on this vintage, like 75% new French oak, 14 months, something like that. Not a lot, but definitely, the wood spice notes and that savory notes are really popping nicely on this wine. That's the aromatics are crazy. It's just everything from fruit, savory, spice, all kinds of stuff going on.
Lovely.
Very fun.
This is fantastic. So feel free, dive in, because this is our last wine. We're still going to chat for a couple of minutes, but just any last burning questions that you have for Dylan, you can talk to me most of the time, but he's only here very rarely. Well, once in a blue moon, it seems.
This is my first trip to London.
First trip?
I came here just to do this.
That's very good of you.
Yeah.
Right, fantastic.
No, thanks
it's
for
amazing.
having me.
But what we're going to do is, so this maybe isn't fair because of different wines, but just what I'm intrigued here is to see, if you jump into the little vibey thing here and pick, because what I hope to see is not everyone's going to jump on one wine, because there's going to be this flow that everyone is going to like different things, and some people like this, some people like that, some people will love this, some people will love the other, and it just shows that it doesn't matter what you like or what you enjoy.
Always drink what you like.
Drink what you like. Drink what you enjoy.
Matter, price tag, whatever. Just have fun with it. Wine's a serious business for sure, but the enjoyment of it doesn't have to be so.
Exactly, and we're not sticking the prices up tonight like we usually for those who join the online wine tasting club. Thank you to all the A, to Vineyard Cellars for putting this together, B, for Revana for coming over, to Dylan for hanging out with us tonight, but all the other independents who have kind of taken a chance on this new kind of format to get wines out to people. So if you've got from your local independent wine merchant, you'll have a little price list in your box. But yeah, as we're rolling through, if I had
white Rhone blend coming in at number 2. That's
I know,
exciting.
And the question, and this was we talked about this before the tasting started. How many people would walk into their little independent wine merchant and off the shelf without any guidance pick up
a white Rhone
bottle of
Argentina?
Yeah, do you have a white Rhone blend from Argentina? As long as it's got 4 different grapes in there, I'll take it. But that just showcases that it's cool, it's interesting, and getting able to try it. If I had to put my money on before we started, I would have thought the cab would come in top of the list. But if you have a look at the price, it's the most expensive one of the evening as well. But great texture, great fruit, great everything. So wonderful.
Pinot's
making a late run for it there. I've jinxed the white Rhone there.
Yeah, well, I was surprised. I mean, that's just I'm so excited that it went up like
we've
that.
also got it. I'm also going to put you on the spot here. When I asked you at the beginning, you were well excited about the Gris, which is amazing.
I do love the Pinot Gris.
But what it shows is different wines for different people,
Totally.
and that's what's
Yeah.
hugely exciting. So before we finish, so what's I say the future for Revana? You've been doing it for a while, but what should we be looking out for apart from everything?
Man, I work for such an amazing guy. Dr. Revana is just tons of energy. He's always wanting to experiment with something different. We've got a really cool Cabernet Franc project cooking in Argentina. We're going to make the first vintage this year and have a little bit and make enough so we can spread the love around. Right now, we make like 150 cases of a Grand Reserve Cab Franc, and it's just not enough to go around. It's really just enough to basically supply our mailing list, and that's not a wine I get to play with. I'm in charge of putting these wines in all the right restaurants and having fun with it. So, new Cabernet Franc project coming out. We're going to pick that for the first time this year, and over the next couple of years, scale that up to there's enough to spread the love around. So I'm really excited about that. We've got a new vineyard operation right around just literally right over 100 yards between, right outside the Alexandra vineyard. We've got another 55 acres that we just planted. And so build another Pinot project there.
Oh, amazing.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
I suppose I'm going to have to come over and see what's happening. That's what's important.
We're looking at all kinds of different things. I mean, it's fun to work. You know, what's fun about this, what I love about this job is like working for one guy. You know, I don't work for a big corporation with wine. We work with someone that I speak with on the phone almost every day. And we talk about fun ideas and, hey, should we change the label here? Or what can we do different? We're always talking about how can we make this better? Look, not every vintage is going to be a rock star vintage, you know, but we're always looking. We're the team's small enough. We make just enough wine that we can course correct things. You know, we're not trying to make recipe wines.
That's amazing,
and that's what's fun about it. It's just playing with what nature gives you and having a lot of fun with it. And every vintage is a different story.
Perfect. So I've got one little more poll that I'm going to put up, which I don't know, worries me a little bit because YouTube messed around with us earlier. That's how we came out.
We flipped back. All right. So we had a tight race between the Pinot and the White Rhone. All right.
But for those who have been with me and the Online Wine Tasting Club for a while, this is, the first time we've done a kind of wine maker, VP of sales, centered thing with somebody coming and guest hosting with me to give a deep amount of information. For those who haven't done this before, hopefully you like the format. But just, have you had a good night? Because that's what matters. No, it's not your thing, or it was amazing. Let's do more tastings like this. Let's get more guest hosts on and get more great wine through your doorstep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm going to stop it right there, 100%.
All right, yeah. All right. Turn it off before it changes. No,
absolutely. Just let me check the chat and see if there's any last questions in there. Yeah, Kathy's telling me that I need to visit Argentina. Yes, I do. Whoever wants to take me first, El Pasión or Corazón del Sol, I'm up to offers. We've got love the format. For those who got in a little bit late and it wasn't quite there, what we're going to do is we're going to tidy up the two YouTube feeds, put them together, and that will be online in the next couple of days, so you can, follow up, catch any bits that you missed. But obviously, if you love the wine, the only way we can continue doing this if you support the guys who made it. So, whoever you got this tasting through today, if you love the wines, support them, purchase them, because if you don't, we can't keep doing this. That's not a threat. That's just please buy some great wine, drink good wine. But any final thoughts before we let these people enjoy the rest of their evening?
Come visit us. My email is dylan@revanaportfolio.com. Really easy to remember. It's Bob Dylan, so it's like Dylan, spell it the correct way. Yeah, no, Dylan's actually a Gaelic name. That's from I got that from this area. But reach out to me if you want to go visit Argentina. You want to go visit Oregon or Napa. Reach out and say hello. Say, hey, I watched your podcast I watched the show on Online Wine Club, and I'd love to come and visit you. So reach out. We'd love to host you. The winery's beautiful. It's such each spot is really, really special. And we're thrilled to do what we do, and it's a fun time for wine. So come out and visit us. Let us know if you need anything.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, massive thank you to Dylan. Thank you so much. The wines are great, really insightful, and you've got enough projects that we can do this again.
Yeah, man. We'll come back with a whole nother set.
Have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you all again very soon. Cheers.
Bye.